Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Bekzadeh and I wish you have a great day. Guys, today I want to start the first session of the Minitab training series. And today I want to talk about two practical tools in the Minitab. The first one is the Pareto chart and the second one is cluster K-mean analysis. I would like to explain you how we can draw Pareto chart in the Minitab and how we can interpret it. So how we can draw Pareto chart as a usual and how we can involve the cost or expense factor in our Pareto chart, which is so important. And the second part is about the cluster K-means analysis. This tool is important too. It helps us to categorize and groups or factors. And I think that these two, they can complete each other. So let's go to see what happens. So first I need to mention that I just made this information. They are not real. Just for this example, I made this information by myself and I created the number of repetition per year and its cost. So as you can see in the main page of the Minitab is look like Excel. We need to enter informations. Here we have three type of information. The first column is about the internal failure in the production line. I list different type of the failures in the production line in the first column. The second one is a repetition of that failure in 1 year. For instance, 15 times the lack of the raw material is possible to happen in 1 year. And the lack of professional human resource is 5 times per year. It's approximate. And the third column is about the imposed cost about that failure. For instance, per time when we suffer from the lack of raw material, $1,000 is imposed on the company. It means that per time we don't have a raw material, what damage us financially is $1,000. So when we enter three type of the informations, internal failure, repeat of the per year, and imposed cost per year. In the second part, because I want to draw Pareto chart in two types. The first time is according to the repetition per year. It means that I don't want to involve the factor of the cost. But the second time, I want to draw this chart according to the weight of the cost. So by this way, I need to calculate total cost. It means I need to multiple repeats per year in imposed cost per time. If I want to do this, first I should go in the tab calculate and calculator. After that, we have this calculator. Firstly, I need to specify where and which column it should go. For instance, in this way, I specify C4. It means a store result in variable in C4. After that, I select and specify the function. It means repetition per year. I select it. And after that, I select this function from the keyboard. And after that, again, I select the second variable and click OK. As you can see in C4, the total cost for per failure is appeared. So now I want to go to draw Pareto chart. So I click Stat, Quality Tools, and Pareto chart. After that, we have a, a page like this, Pareto chart page. Please pay attention. For the first one, defect or attribute date in, we need to specify the factors, the list of the factors we want to consider. So for me, it was internal failure. And after that, in frequencies in, we should specify which variable we want to involve in this chart. For instance, in the first time, I want to draw this chart according to repetition of the failure per year. So I select repetition per year in the frequencies in. Please pay attention that at the first time, we have a list of the variable and columns here. When we click in each of these parts, we can select them. So after that, we OK that part. We have this type of Pareto chart. Please pay attention that from the Pareto chart, we can understand which factors are the 80% of our failures. It means that, for instance, here, or 80% is here. So we can understand that 6 factors are included in 80% of our failures. These 6 factors are the most important part of our Pareto chart on our failures. We need to consider them, all of them, and after that, the rest of the failures. But as I told you, this Pareto chart is according to the repetition of the failure. But you know that expense of the failure is much more important. Is it possible that one failure has a high repetition, but its expenses is low? But one failure has a low repetition, but it has a lot of it imposes us a huge expenses. So we need to fix the second one first. So how we can involve the factor of expenses in the Pareto chart. So as you can see, it's a main chart or main page of the Pareto chart. Now, instead of the repetition per year in the part of frequencies in, we replace it instead of total cost. It means we enter total cost. We select total cost for the frequencies in. In this situation, we involve the factor of the cost too. We calculate the total cost for this part. And after that, we OK it. As you can see, our chart is changed. This chart is according to the repetition and expenses. It means both factors, both essential factors involved to draw this chart. As you can see, in this time, for 80% of our failures consists of 5 factors. It means that one factor becomes less. It means that if we want to consider 80% of a failure, we just need to consider half of the failures, not all of them. Here, you can see, for instance, the first one, which is the lack of raw material, imposes us per year $15,000. It's a 30.4% the total cost. So it's the most important. The second one is $10,000, which is a 20% of the total cost, 20% and half, around half, which is because these two together is 50%. And you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the 5th one, you see that sum of the percentage is 80%. So up to here, this 5-factor causes 80% of the failure in our production line. Now, after this section, I want to talk about the cluster K-mean analysis. In this part, in the cluster K-mean analysis, it helps us to categorize them. It means that it shows us which one is important, the most important, less important, the least important. It categorizes for us. We know that which factor is the most important one and which factors or failures are the less important. It means we can pay attention less. And also it shows us variability in each group. It's so useful, especially I think after Pareto chart is so useful for us. And also in other process, it can be used independently too. So here I compare these two Pareto chart together, and here. So I just shortly compare these two, and after that start cluster. Please pay attention that the first one was just according to the repetition of the failure, but the second one was according to repetition and the cost. The first one, it consists 6 factors. It means that 80% of the total failure are in 6 factors, but the second one, which is more logical, is 5 factors. Please pay attention. Delay in receiving the production plan. In the first one, it's realized as one of the most important or one of the essential factors. But in the second one, when we involve the expenses, it's not. But a happening incident in the production line, in the first one, is not realized as an important failure. But the second one, in the second chart, it is important because it imposes us a huge expenses. So you can see that the second one is more realistic and logical. So I recommend you, if you want to draw a Pareto chart, I recommend you to involve the cost too, because it gives you a realistic vision regarding to your problems, and you can have a logistic understanding regarding the reason of your problems. Now, we are going to talk about cluster K-mean analysis. The first step is to define the initial guys in this part. For instance, I wrote 3 numbers in the Minitabs. Number 1, 2, 3. I assign number 1 to the most important, assign number 2 as the less important, and assign number 3 as the least important factor. So I don't need to assign these initial numbers to all of these factors. It's not our job. We just define it for the Minitab. For instance, I assign number 1 to the most important one according to the total cost. For instance, because 15,000 is the highest number of cost for me, so it's realized as the most important one. So I assign initial number 1 to 15,000. Second one, number 2, is the less important. So I assign number 2 to one of them, which is less important, such as 7,200. In comparison to the first one, is less important. So I assign it to this one. I assign number 3 to the lowest or one of the lowest expenses, which here is 2000. Also, if I assign, I could assign it to 1600, but it doesn't change in the result. So we could assign it to 2000 or 1600, and others are 0. Please pay attention. Here, my variables, they depend on each other because total cost is equal to a multiple of the repetition per year and imposed cost per time. But it's possible. You can use different variable, different characteristics which are independent from each other. So, but please pay attention to this point that you need to choose one of them to assign the initial according to it. For instance, here I select total cost as my main characteristic and assign the initial according to the total cost. It means that the highest one is the most important for me, the middle one is the less important, and the last one is the least important for me. But probably if I impose according to just cost per time, my result was different. But the most important factor was the total cost. So I assigned according to the total cost. So to do this analysis, we need to go to stat, multivariate, and cluster k-means. Click on it. We have this page. Please pay attention in the part of variables. We need to select 2 or 3 variables, not just one. If you select just one, it shows error that there is no enough information. So I select 3 variables: repetition, cost per time, and total cost. And after that, in the part of a specified partition, you have a 2 part, number of clusters and initial partition columns. So I define initials. So I choose the second one, initial partition columns, and enter initial, which I understand here and here. Please pay attention about number of the cluster. If you don't have any definition regarding to the clusters, you can select number of clusters. And after that, you enter how many clusters you want to have. You can enter 3. But there is a point. Please pay attention that if you select this one and specify 3, according to the information of the Minitab, it considered the first 3 one. It means that if I didn't write initial here, if I select a number of clusters and enter number of 3 here, the Minitab, according to its information, specify like this: number 1, number 2, and number 3. It means choose the first 3 one and specify and define it number 1 for the first one, number 2 for the second one, and number 3 for the third one. So probably my analysis was wrong. So if you mind to assign to the first one, if you want to number of just specify number of cluster, you should pay attention about the first, second, third, and the first informations. For instance, if I wanted to be correct, even in that time, I needed to write 5,200 here for the second one, and 1,600 or 2,000 for the third one, instead of these locations. It's the first point. A standardized variable, we should tick it. Why? Because it makes all of the skills equal together. Did you remember I told you you can have different factors which are independent and specify them in the variables? So you should specify standardized variables because it helps you and it makes all of these factors by different scales equal in the same weight together. So in the next step, you need to go to storage. In the storage, you define title of one column, for instance, final. Why? Because, for instance, in the C9, the final come here, and it specifies for us which factor is in which cluster. For instance, if the first one is the number 1, 1 is come here. If the second one is number 3, it becomes 3 here. And as I told you, this title is final, is a 1, 3. For instance, 3 again, 3, 3, and according to its cluster. So it helps us to understand easier that which factor is belonging to which cluster. After that, we okay it, and it shows us. It represents us 3 charts. But the most important, which gives us a lot of information, is the first one. I explain you completely. For instance, in the first cluster, which is the most consists the most important factors, we just have one factor. As you can see, the lack of raw material. I specify in the Pareto chart here too. Why? Because it imposes us $15,000, which is the 30% of the total cost. So about the second one, we have 3 factors. It means happening incident in the production line, the lack of the defined quality, and the failure of the machine. And I specify here. They are important, but they are not as important as the first one. We should consider the first one, and after that we examine these 3 factors. As you can see, some of this percentage is a lot. 44% of the total cost. So they're important, and if we want to sum with the first one, these 4 factors are 75% of the total cost. But what the information are presented by within cluster sum of the square and average distance from centroid. Please pay attention that the second column, which is the within cluster sum of the square, represent the how much is the compact of the each groups. So as you can see, the first one is the 1, so it's not compact. It doesn't have any specific compact. For the third one, also it has 6 factors, but its rate of the compact is high. But about the second one, it has 3 factors, but the rate of the compact is low because this number is 7, this one is 3. Whatever the number in this column is higher, the rate of compact is less. About the average distance from the centroid, it represents how much is the variability in your cluster. As you can see, about the first one is 0 because there is just one factor. About the second one, variability is high. As you can see, difference of this percentage, they are different. The first one is 20% and the third one is the 10%. So there is a large difference between the first one and the third one. But the variability in the third cluster is low. As you can see, there is a 4%, uh, sorry, 4% 0.1, 4% 0.1, 4% 0.1, 4% 0.3. All of them are in the range of the 4. So the variability is not so much. So they are in the same range. It presents the variability. As I showed you, I specified the cluster on the Pareto chart, the first one, 3 factors, and the rest one, they are least important. Also, in the Pareto chart, it told us that for 80% of the failures, we need to consider 5 factors. But cluster told us the first 4 factors are the most important. So, firstly, we need to consider the first 4 factors, and after that, we consider the 5th factor, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is the general failure in the production line. After that, we consider this one. So the first 5 factors, if they are fixed, it means that we could fix 80% of the failures. And after that, we can pay attention to the rest of the failures because they are the least important. So, guys, it was the topic regarding to Pareto charts and cluster K-means. I hope that this session can be useful for you guys, and I so appreciate if I receive the feedback from you, and I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a great time. Bye.